do that one dance, baby. That one dance.
A pleasant morning to each and everyone. I am Buena Sinoya, Dito Ed Episode 3. In this morning, allow me to discuss to you about cultural relativism. But before I will proceed, let me recall first the previous lesson, which is how it defines moral behavior. Cultural is the integrated of human knowledge, beliefs, and behaviors. It is people's way of life. Culture consists of non-material and material culture. Non-culture material includes language, values, arts, rules, knowledge, and meaning shared by members of society. Material culture refers to the physical object that a society produces, such as tools or works of art. Culture is learned, not inherited. So there are three perspectives. Why is it culture is change? It is acquired through inculturation, and acculturation. So, inculturation, it is the process of learning the components of life, material as well as non-material, in one's culture. Another one, inculturation, is making the gospel take roots in the culture and introducing that transformed culture of to Christianity. Last one is acculturation. It is the process by which people learn and adapt a new culture. And now, let's proceed to my chosen topic, which is cultural relativism. First, we will define what is relativism. Relativism means what is true for you is true for you, and what is true for me is true for me. This quote wants to emphasize the significances of respect to one's opinion. Each of one has our own kind of thinking. Therefore, we think differently and we can naturally create our own understanding. Since respect in different aspects plays a vital role, respecting someone's idea or opinion will always bring peace and order. Now, let's proceed to define what is cultural relativism. Says that what you believe, value, or practice depends on your culture, while what I believe, value, and practice depends on my culture. Means that if what is your beliefs, custom, norms, practices, values, and traditions, it will relate your culture, how they manipulate you as a human. In other words, cultural relativism is the idea that a person's beliefs, values, practices should be understood based on that person's own culture, rather than be judged against the criteria of another. It means we should respect one culture to another culture because we're raised in different beliefs, practices, values, and norms. It is not your obligation to judge them or criticize their beliefs. You must respect of it or accept their norms of society. It's really difficult to understand and accept the action of the members of other societies. If we try to see them in the light of our own values, habits, and attitudes, or on the basis of our legal system and of our religion. However, we must bear in mind that a similar behavior has a different meaning and values in different cultures. Therefore, it is to understand the behavior in relation to the culture prevailing in the society where it takes place. This simply means that we must not judge other people's behavior on the basis of our own culture stance. The gesture of extending one's hands to shake the hands of another person, a way of greeting in Western influence, and it is considered proper by the Filipinos. But this act may be considered unacceptable and unethical in other societies in Asia and Africa, where the forms of greeting is not through the handshake but rather through bowing, putting the both hands on one's own breast, touching the palm of the forehead, kissing both cheeks, or slapping of the back of each other. So we have a different practices on how we greet to our neighborhood. But always put to our mind that respect your neighborhood cultures, build a good relationship. At this point, we will differentiate what is cultural relativism and cultural perspective. Cultural perspective refers to the way that individuals are shaped by their environment as well as social and cultural factors, such as factors include a person's nationality, race, and gender. So cultural perspective is ang imukita sa usa ka culture, whether good or evil, nimo nakita. Instance, you are the Catholic, then para nimo kay puti ang culture sa mga Muslim. Nga magsulot og kalo, nya taas nga sinina og mag-fasting padyod. Pero regardless sa imong perspective ana based sa relativism, dili sakto nga mang-judge ka nila. Kay pantay-pantay lang ang tanong nga culture. Equally valid and human system is really better than any other. While cultural relativism, it is not judging in the different cultures. What the cultural relativist fails to see the difference between cultural perspective and cultural relativism. Any perspective is a standpoint or viewpoint of something. Let's say for instance, sa painting na idaghan or klase-klase nga perspective ang atong makita sa usa ka painting. Pero that painting is usually has a true or one point to us. Kung baga, gitry nato og appreciate ang content o design sa painting sa lain-lain nga pagkita or paglantaw. Nato og unsay iyaha buot pasabot diri kanato. Pero wa nato kitaa ang content or design ana nga painting nga gihimo sa author. Based sa usa lang nga meaning or viewpoint nga gusto niya ipabatid sa atoa. Kay we as a Filipino naadyoy kinaiyahan nga dili jud ta mo stick into one perspective only because we tend that it's better to have more perspective than one. But in result, we are wrong. Therefore, you just trying to understand one culture's having a perspective on one's culture is needed to understand all. But it does not follow that morality must be based only on said culture. The problem with moving from cultural perspective to cultural relativism is the erosion of reason that it caused. Rather than simply, we need to understand the morals of other culture. It says we cannot judge the morals of other culture regardless for the reasons for their action. When we say erosion, it is the perspective of people or person that has a different cost. Dili kay muingon rata nga kinahanglan atong i-understand ang ilaha nagkalanlain nga culture or muingon rata nga dili ta maka-judge nila tungod sa ilaha culture o base sa rason nga ilaha ga nabuhat. If we hold on the strict cultural relativism, it is not possible to say that human sacrifices is wrong or that respect for the elderly is right. The basic premise is that truth is relative. If every truth statement is valid, then the statement, some truths are absolute, must be valid. The statement, there is no absolute truth, is inaccurate according to relativism, but it's not absolute truth itself. To sum up, in cultural relativism is the idea that a person believes, values, and practices should be understood based on that person's own culture rather than be judged against the criteria of another. Morality is a relative to the norms of one's culture. That is, whether an action is right or wrong depends on the moral norms of the society in which it is practiced. The danger of cultural relativism is the idea of relativism itself. Whether an action is right or wrong depends on the moral norms of society states there are no absolute truth, which is an absolute truth itself. If so, absolute relativism contradicts itself. There is no difference between cultural perspective and cultural relativism. To have a cultural perspective is to understand people's themselves, beliefs, values, and practices in the context of their culture. Having a perspective of one's culture is needed to understand people, but it